put your wrist to your face and smell that happiness that's on your wrist. And you're brought back to a happier place. When you put that on, I don't think you're putting it on with bad intentions. You're putting it on with the good intentions. And I think it brings it back.
You're listening to the Icandemy Podcast, the podcast for people who can but don't know how. This is where you get actionable steps to turn vague dreams into blissful realities. And I'm your host, Mashable Victoria Wolabi. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Icandemy Podcast. I'm super excited, super stoked to be here today. It's almost Christmas. I'm like, gosh, where did this year go? But yeah, it's the end of the year, and I always love Christmas time. So first of all, I just want to say a big thank you to every guest who has ever been on this show. I also want to say a huge thank you to the listeners. We are nothing without you. If you don't tune in every week to listen, we are really nothing. So I just want to give a big thanks from the depth of my heart to say thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you to all my guests for taking the time out to share the incredible wisdom that you have shared with the community time and time again. Thank you so much. And today I have another guest for you. She is incredible. She's a lady that I totally respect. She describes herself as a professional hustler. She's a passionate customer champion advocate. She's a specialist with inbound sales, digital marketing strategist, and a freelance writer. She's also a best-selling author of the new community rules, marketing on the social web. My guest today is Tamar Weinberg. Tamar Weinberg has been an early adopter of all things social tech. She's someone you could maybe describe as a nerd. She has spoken at a dozen of conferences and has been recognized in a number of global publications, both print and digital. Tamar was Mashable's sixth hire in 2007 and has helped grow the company tremendously through her sales effort that has spanned 6 full years. Additionally, as Namecheap's social media face, Tamar spearheaded all substantial customer acquisition efforts, growing the company more than tenfold since her arrival in 2009 through her strong personal emphasis on strategic marketing and customer experience and happiness. She is also a mom of 4 and lives in the New York City area. Hi, Tamar. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It was nice of you to actually correct the pronunciation of your name because most times we all think it's Tamar.
Yeah, Tamar. As always, it always happens. That's why I created a brand that is going to hopefully educate the world how to pronounce it. I don't know if that's really true, but I really did think about that. I have to say, I really did think about that.
Oh, really? And how many people get it wrong? I'm sure I'm not the only one.
I would say about 30, 40%. It's not a huge number, but it is. Sometimes it's great. I have a good week. And sometimes it's just like, what?
I totally get you. I have another name, Mashable, that people get wrong all the time. So I was like, okay, you just call me Victoria. That would do.
That works. Wait, so it's, how do you pronounce, what's the other name?
It's Mashable.
How do you spell that?
Omoshola.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful name. It means a child of complete abundance. It's a beautiful name if only people can get it right.
I love it. Very cool.
Yeah. All right, Tamar, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out to be here. You have an amazing story. You have a beautiful story. But before we get into any of that, tell us a bit about you.
Yeah. I don't know where to begin. Honestly, I've always had this drive to do something different in the world. I have been a natural born communicator. When I was little, I wanted to be an author. It's funny. I don't know if I should say this, but I always had my parents push me to do bigger because they're like, authors don't make that much money. So I was always writing, but I was also always kind of had this knack for this entrepreneurial drive. Started selling little things on eBay, knickknacks. I sold origami in 2nd grade. I learned that origami, no one wants to buy things that don't really have lasting power. And I did a little bit of web design here and there, kind of helping out my school. At college, I had 3 or 4 different jobs in college. I was supporting one university's deans and the academics there. I was supporting the students at the school across the street. And I was also building out websites for some of the extracurricular organizations and majored in computer science. But don't ask me to code for the life of me. It's very interesting. College is a more, higher education is very theoretical and isn't as practical on the programming side. Right. So I really got by being more of a technical writer. And like I said, kind of coming back to my natural communication skills. I was the one who explains what the code did because I didn't know how to make it. But
I can tell you how to use it.
Exactly. So, and, the experience that I had working in school really kind of ended up finding myself as a systems administrator at a firm. And then I had a foray into the marketing world. And that's kind of where things really started taking off. I was hired as a systems administrator at a marketing company and ended up really doing a lot with building out their social media team. This was a couple of years later. We were pretty much the first people ever to really build out a social media arm before in a pre-marketing and a pre-social media marketing world. And one of the first social media agencies out there. It was very successful. So people were flocking to me. I was actually around that time, an agent reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to write a book on social media marketing?" Because I was already doing that. And there's that author thing. Ding, ding, ding. I was able to do that. And I was also recruited by Mashable. I reached out to them, but then they came back and recruited me, and I was Mashable employee number 6. And I really had the ability to kind of run all these different things, wearing a million different types of hats, because when you're in a startup, that's really the job that you have. Like I was doing business development, communications, legal support, training, sales, marketing, and then some. Like it was pretty much, it was everything. And I knew that I wanted to do something in that space, but I really at least in the space of being a doer, but I couldn't figure it out. Fast forward many different years, I was working in Mashable for about 7 years or so. And then, I was working with lots of different startups, kind of building out some successful, some not so much, really kind of understanding the lay of the land there. And I wanted to do something, but I really couldn't figure it out. Right. And then it kind of befell me about a little over a year ago. I went through what I would consider personal trauma, something that really kind of robs me of my ability to rob me of happiness. And it also made me recognize that I had, I would say, probably untreated postpartum depression for many, many years.
Right. Because I was going to say as well that you're also a mom. On top of all of these hats that you wear, you're also a mom to 4 beautiful children. Right.
Yeah. I had Mashable's first and third babies. So there was a baby between, but I did have my first and second child were Mashable's first and third. So it was very challenging, at the end of the day. I also am one of those people who fosters a remote culture. I thrive in that. I like the flexibility of being able to be a mom, but also being I would say I'm married to my job. I love doing what I do, but I love doing what I do on the confines of not being a 9-to-5. So I'm still confined, but I'm not that rigid 9-to-5er. Right. For example, what time is it now? It's Sunday night at 8:00. I consider this work, but I love it. I love what I'm doing. I make it work. Yeah. So when I was depressed, that I was in a very low place in my life. And for some odd reason, one day I wanted to do something a little bit different. I was waking up, I was going through the motions, kind of I don't remember really what happened. I woke up and I went to bed. That was my life. And then one day I found a vial of perfume in a cabinet and I put it on. Now, when you're depressed, you might have this in your intro, but if not, I don't remember. It was a while ago that we had that chat. When you're depressed, you just don't have any perception of what people are thinking. You don't care. You really don't care. I literally walked around in sweats, pink Crocs and socks and loose yoga pants. That's day in, day out. I had lots of yoga pants. I had the same color every single day, but you would think that I was wearing pajamas every single day. Right. And because I didn't care. So the fact that I put on this perfume one day, really because my mind was in a different place. Most people put on perfume, they want to be smelled by other people. I put on perfume because I wanted something new in my life. I wanted a change in scenery. And that became an internalized experience that changed me in a huge, huge way.
Let me just back up a little bit here because you are a startup founder now, right?
Yeah.
you have created something that I think is going to take the market by storm, right? Is this the backstory as to why you started your new venture?
Yes, exactly. So I'm working my way there. I skipped so many years in between, but
Right.
just kind of fast forwarding to what inspired the business. And I apologize if I really jumped.
That's all right. That's all right. Carry on. That's lovely. I was just trying to put a context to it. Like, okay, Tamar is here now. Let's work it back a little bit. Cool. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah.
So you put on a fragrance just because you wanted something new.
I wanted something new, and it was a nose awakening experience. I was going to say eye-opening, but nose awakening experience.
I love that nose awakening experience.
Yeah. We have 5 senses, and that one sense is the one that I would say is mostly dormant. Like we have it, we use it. It reminds us, there's so many memories that are tied to our nose, but there's not much happiness that's tied to what you smell every single day. Like if you think about an average day, if you think about yesterday, if I ask you, Victoria, like yesterday, do you remember what you smelled yesterday? Like,
no.
Exactly. No. But here's the thing. I do because it's a completely different mind-blowing experience that I've been able to derive from this one day, that one little 2 milliliter vial of perfume. So I put it on and it woke my nose up, and all of a sudden I wanted to try different things. All of a sudden I was like, I have to go to Sephora. I have to buy perfume. I have to try. I have to start reading about perfume. I have to start going to all, joining all the online communities for fragrance people. I want to start watching documentaries. And I did everything. I started reaching out to, and I assume they have this also in New Zealand, but they free cycle. They're free cycle communities where people get rid of things that they don't want. Like one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, they have it everywhere. And I started asking people, do you have perfume? And I started looking for people who were giving away perfume, and people did. And not everything. I didn't love everything because it's like taste. You might be a foodie, but there are certainly things that you might not love. So it's kind of the same thing with my nose. But everything there got me curious. I said, I have to try more. I have to do more in this fragrance world. And what am I going to do? And all of a sudden, all of these entrepreneurial experiences, this startup experiences that I had earlier came together. And I said, I need to do something with fragrance. I just don't know, again, what it would be. But I knew that something was going to happen. And last Thanksgiving in November here in the United States, so that's it's early November now. It's the end of November. I remember just bringing it to the attention of my family. We were sitting at Thanksgiving. My brother-in-law is like, you should call it Tamar. And I'm like, you know what? I just acquired Tamar.com.
Cool. You were so lucky to have found that domain.
Yeah, I had
how popular your name is.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular name. So it was actually an interesting challenge. So I wanted that domain since I was a young child, but I didn't have the means of buying it back in the day. It was a United Kingdom search engine marketing agency for about 2 decades or so.
Right.
Maybe like 12 or 15. I don't know what it was. But I do remember being a child. I feel like I was a child then. Maybe I wasn't a child then because I'm not, that was 12 years ago. I wasn't a child. But I remember, I think they must have had it for longer. And I remember reaching out to them maybe when I was 15 years old and saying, hey, I want that domain. Maybe it wasn't owned by them at the time. That might be it.
Really? At 15? You already were negotiating that?
I was trying. And, I've already filled it. Since I bought Tamar.com, people already are trying to buy it. Oh, I want to buy it for this amount of money. I'm like, are you kidding me? I paid more than that. What are you talking about? So I did reach out. I tried to get it for many years. And then I found out that they went bankrupt, and I was able to work with the legal team to acquire the domain. Of course, I paid a little bit of a premium, but I'm happy with what I did. It was my name. I was intending to use it for my resume, and all of a sudden this came up and the domain was there. And I said, you know what? This is an opportunity and I might do something with it. I might as well do something with it.
Okay, so how did you start pulling together the resources to actually take that idea from, out of your head into something tangible, making, prototypes of what you had in mind?
Yeah, so let me talk about what the idea was going to be, because I couldn't figure out what it was going to be yet.
Right.
And I knew that I wanted to do something in fragrance, but I wasn't sure. And then I realized, fragrance for me was a wellness play, but fragrance for the rest of the world is a sexualization play. It's all about you need to feel sexy. You need to look sexy. The world needs to look at you. You need to smell good for other people. It's all about
Absolutely.
beautifying women and the externals. It's all about making people look amazing. But for me, fragrance was a very, very personal experience. And all of a sudden, I had gone through what I would say was a very, very difficult time. I mean, there were like literally every facet of my life was in a bad place.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, I realized that I don't have to let this consume me. I can overcome it. And that it was a very different experience for me. So I realized that if that mindset is translated to fragrance in general, that could bring people out of this depths of despair, like literally depths of despair that I felt. And how do I communicate that when every brand's message is all about being sexy? It's all about feeling beautiful internally. This is all about self-acceptance, a journey, literally going on a journey for happiness, and making happy the new normal is really, really who I am. Fragrance for who you are. It's like recognizing who you are. So how did I go about doing that? So I realized I needed to make my own fragrance brand. That's really kind of what it came down to.
Right.
I didn't want to piggyback on somebody. Like, what was the point? I was going to talk. Like, yeah, I wasn't going to be able to do that. I'm like literally, this tech geek coming from computer science, wearing my pink Crocs, like what was
and sweatpants.
Yeah, sweatpants, and and now I'm dressing a little better now because I'm starting to realize that I'm loving myself for who I am, and I didn't have that for, I would say, a decade of my life. Was robbed from that experience of happiness until fragrance entered my world. So I knew I had to do something, but I also knew to answer your question and how to get the resources. Creating a brand can be a variety of different things. You can either create it yourself, or you can enlist in resources that might be able to do it for you at a fraction of the time, and not so much a fraction of the cost.
Exactly. I was going to say that because you have to pay those people who do it for you. Mm-hmm.
But you think about it, and I talk to freelancers all the time, and people always talk about how people are always, it's funny. I surround myself with these interesting communities, and people are always justifying, oh, well, it's going to take you 5 minutes to do something. It should cost X amount of money. It's like, no, but it's all about the years of work and learning that I put into being an expert. So I recognize that I have to pay a premium, so I'm not set back 10 years in R&D myself. So of course I had to get the experts to do it. So I reached out to a couple of perfumers. I'm working with a guy in the United States on the other side, the other coast, the left coast, whatever you would call it, California. And I'm creating 2 fragrances, and I want to talk about that also. The names of our fragrances are actually really, really cool. So the 2 first fragrances that we're going to have are like quirky and flawed, because it's all about embracing the quirks that you have, the flaws that you have, and appreciating who you are. And, my lesson for my experience with fragrance is that you put it on and it's going to last, because this is some high-end eau de parfum, however you would pronounce it.
Eau de parfum, eau de toilette.
Yeah. Exactly. There you go. You got that better than me. Yeah. So it's all about being able to bring your wrist to your nose and being brought back to the moment. And I really think that a lot of people don't do that. It's almost like I thought about the quote, wake up and smell the roses. Now, people usually say that in a very patronizing way, but I'm saying that in a very recognize who you are and where you are. Put your face to your wrist, put your wrist to your face, and smell that happiness that's on your wrist. And you're brought back to a happier place. When you put that on, I don't think you're putting it on with bad intentions. You're putting it on with the good intentions. And I think it brings it back.
Right.
So
this is about, and this was from our discussion earlier before. You actually said to me at the time, you said, my approach is to use scents as a way to make people feel good and help them out of their, mental health issues.
Right. Exactly. It's mental health. It's all about and even if you're not necessarily I was suffering, but I think that anybody needs to, it's being brought back to the moment. It's being brought back to who you are. We need to, in my case, and I think all of us we need to recognize that we're not all perfect.
Right.
And the names of the fragrances here reflect the imperfect qualities of the people who wear it. I mean, everybody here is that person. But bring back to who you are and just realize that, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's almost like we're all in this together because, hey, you're not going to be alone wearing it.
Hey everybody, it's Mashable here with a quick word from our sponsors. You see, when you decide to become an entrepreneur, one thing you do not realize you're signing up for is actually the amount of skills that you need to learn, especially if you're bootstrapping your business and trying to do a lot of things yourself. So things like building a website, social media marketing, photography, those are skills that you need when you're getting started as an entrepreneur. And that was what I was quick to realize when I started my business. But hey, Skillshare came to the rescue. With Skillshare, I was able to go there and take tutorials from people who have been exactly where I was, but are now experts in their field. So whether you're trying to build your website, trying to learn how to market your product on social media, or trying to improve on your communication and facilitation skills, Skillshare has got you. With Skillshare, you're able to learn new skills fast and effectively with step-by-step guided tutorials. And as a lovely listener, Skillshare has been kind enough to allow our listeners 2 months free of premium Skillshare. So to access 2 months free of premium Skillshare, click on the link below in the show notes. Tamar, I just want to take you back a little bit, and this is for someone who may not even know that they're suffering or may not be able to articulate how they feel. What were some of the feelings that you were going through at the time before you found fragrance? What was your typical day like, in that state of despair?
It was tough. I mean, it's like you're asking me almost to relive some very difficult moments. So I'm trying to figure out.
I do apologize for that. But for me, I'm just trying to understand, what does that look like? And this is just because to be honest, sometimes we don't even know we're going through certain emotions. We just feel like,
right.
I'm not just happy today.
Right. Don't apologize. Absolutely. I want to do that. And I'm here to be as raw and vulnerable as possible. Vulnerable should be the name of my fragrance if I don't have that plans. But,
you should actually make one titled Vulnerable.
I think I do.
Oh, cool.
So, for the postpartum depression that I really didn't recognize that I was there, I was in this, I didn't care about anything, but not in a good way. Right now, it's almost like I don't care about things because I know I can overcome, but I didn't care then because I was really fearful of reactions. So there's that. I guess right after my trauma, I was, trying to figure out how to make sense of why did this happen to me? Is there a way to fix the things that were going through my life? I really relived memories. I tried to, make sense of things in my mind. I was constantly revisiting a past that I couldn't resolve. And just sitting there and saying, hey, can I fix this? Can I fix this? Can I fix this? Was very difficult. I don't know how it is over there, but I was seeing a psychologist and a psychiatrist. But at the end of the day, I ended up seeing a psychiatrist twice a week. It was high ends, taking medication, just trying to get by. And the medication was dulling my senses. It was making me lethargic. My life was I woke up, sometimes I would do things, but I don't even remember that. Right now I'm journaling, but sometimes I was journaling and it was just how do I make sense of a past that I can't change? And the way it's a very difficult way. I don't know how to communicate this in the best way. Cause it's really, I wasn't in a good way, it's almost like it was a zombie state for me. It really was. I did what I did. I had to do things for my kids, but I had help. Someone was taking my kids to and from school because I didn't feel the desire, the courage to do that. I didn't have it in me to do that. So it's just, I did what I could, but I didn't do very much.
I learned a lot about this from a dear friend of mine. She's an advocate for, postpartum depression because she went through it a lot. She suffered through it and she didn't even know that was what it was called at the time. She just felt, she was actually the first person that really highlighted that. And only when I saw or heard her story was I able to say, oh, I also felt this way when I had my first child back in the day. But I didn't know that was what it was called. Just that general lack of disinterest in actually doing anything for yourself or the baby.
Right, right. You know, like, and I should have seen the warning signs, because I have been depressed in the past. Like, this wasn't like, it's been maybe 20 years or so, but I didn't realize that I was living in the moment. And there was a moment after the birth of my third that I was at a pediatrician's office. And I had somebody who was helping with me with the baby at the time. And the pediatrician made a comment. This was a pediatrician. I ended up not keeping her, but not for that reason. But she made a comment, and it still sticks with me. And she said, you know, you're not really holding your baby. And I said, I didn't know how to respond to that, actually. It wasn't I said anything. But I recognized that it wasn't that I wasn't close with my children. I wasn't desiring to be with my children. I didn't realize that I was kind of reliving that moment of it. I don't want to say if it was disinterest or it was just the fact that there was some sort of lack between being, I think I was just maybe in a sense overwhelmed, but it overwhelms in a way causing a little bit of sadness that I couldn't pinpoint it because it wasn't extreme. The trauma that I went through made me recognize that where I am today was, and 2 years ago, I would say the trauma happened last year. So 2 years ago, I was probably still going through postpartum depression. 4 years ago, I was going through postpartum depression. My kids are 10, 7, 5, and 3. So probably 10 years of postpartum depression. And I only recognized it about 16 months ago or so.
Wow.
So yeah.
And I just need to make this clear to anyone who's listening. It does not make you a bad mom, because that's one of the stigmas that people have, and they're afraid to actually speak up about it because they feel like, why am I feeling this way? If I feel this way, then I must be a horrible person. That's not true.
Right. Absolutely.
Not true at all. It doesn't mean you love your child any less. It's just a phase that, some people go through.
Yeah, but if left untreated and you have a million kids back to back, that could cause, and then maybe you'll have something that eventually is that tipping point. And for me, my tipping point happens with a completely separate issue that made me recognize that I wasn't happy for about 10 years of my life. I loved being with my husband. When we first got married, I mean, I was living this like honeymoon stage for 4 years, and I was so excited to keep going. And he's just like, let's start having kids. And I'm just like, I'm enjoying this. And I didn't realize that it was changing. I didn't realize that the changes were ever so slight. But like, it's almost like the burden, the responsibility, it changes a lot of things. The dynamic of the family changes and might sap a little bit of happiness away from you. It might sap more. You might not notice it. It might be very subtle, but don't be shy about talking to someone. If you feel that your happiness is not where it was before, try some perfume. No, but talk to someone.
Yeah.
But it might, the thing is, for me, perfume was the savior for me. Like, it's a weird thing to say. Like, and I talk about this, we have 5 senses, and our sense of smell, I think, has a lot more potential than a lot of people give credit for. Our happiness, the market speaks to 4 senses, and not happiness and smell are not really seen as a correlation. But, the things you see, there's movies, there's fireworks, there's movies, there's stuff that makes you happy with what you look at. There's so much things that you eat. Like, seriously, all the restaurants these days is about comfort food and fine dining. It gives you positive experiences that make you happy and satiated when you come home. Things you touch. I mean, everything here is about feeling good. The things that you like, having a really nice tactile experience. And then the music. Everybody listens to music. It makes them feel good. But where is your nose in that equation? And that's kind of where I want to speak to. I want to speak to wellness, and I want to speak to happiness. I think the market isn't doing a good job. And that's where this whole entire brand and my experience that speaks to like how it helped me comes in.
This is a powerful, I think you're onto something really big here, really, really big, because you're not the first person that has said, the side effect of some of those medications actually makes you feel more lethargic than you were even before you started taking them. And for you to find that smell actually brings you alive and wakes up your senses, I'm not sure a lot of people have thought about it that way.
I don't think anybody has. Honestly, I didn't.
I never did until I met you and you said, I was like, oh my goodness, I never thought about it that way at all.
Yeah, you know, you should try it. You should think about it. The next time you put it on, I want to see how it changes you. And you should have like this follow-up afterwards.
I
Just say,
did. From the first time we spoke, whenever I put on my perfume now, I actually make a conscious effort to smell it and, take it all in and be present when I'm doing that, right? After that conversation with you, I became more conscious, more aware of how, scents can actually liven up your mood.
how do you experience that throughout the day? Do you revisit it?
Well, I don't know if my fragrance is strong enough to last throughout the day, but when I leave home in the morning, I feel good. It makes me feel good. I feel happy. But I can't wait for you to, release your sense so that we could try it.
Yeah. It will. It sticks with you throughout the day. It's pretty strong. Right. I want to make sure enough alcohol concentration so that you have the experience that it's not fleeting. As I still go through the variety of perfumes that I've purchased and gotten through Free Cycle, I mean, there are some that I'm sitting there and I'm 5 minutes after I put it on, is it still there? And then there are others that I could sometimes, it's like dousing myself. I almost feel like, I'm like stepping in a vat of perfume and I still don't have that experience. And then, so I wanted to make sure I brought it with me and I did that throughout. Yeah.
And during this whole process of the product creation, trying to I'm sure it must have been challenging to try and communicate, because this is not just any fragrance you're trying to create. You're trying to create happiness in a bottle. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced in trying to communicate that vision to manufacturers?
So it's difficult to figure out to find the right balance. The two fragrances that I'm creating, one is like a pear and a patchouli. That's the first one. And the other one is like a smoky and a vanilla.
Right.
And the pear and patchouli initially, they're artisanal fragrances, which has its own challenges in the sense that they're like, and I don't want to say this in the way of like pushing away the target market, because it's not, but that's exactly how, when you hear artisanal fragrances, you might think it's really different than what you've ever experienced. And the truth is that these are different than what you've experienced, but there's also the delicate balance of making sure it's not too like frag head, that's what the fragrance, too frag head skewed so that the mass market won't appeal to the masses. So really kind of finding that delicate balance is important. So for example, the pear and patchouli, there are two flavors of it that I've really worked with. One was a little too patchouli-ish, and people don't know what patchouli is. It's kind of like this floral plants. Right. And I realized that the masses will probably appreciate if I skew it a little more pear. So that's what I did with my second iteration. I needed that. The second fragrance, the smoky vanilla, we've gone through I would say 7 or 8 iterations now, but there were a variety of different changes there. And a couple of things is like, this smoke can be a very different type of experience. I don't know how your winters are, if you ever have like fires in your chimneys, if you even have chimneys. I don't want to say that.
We do. Not a lot anymore since the earthquakes. They've been trying to do away with them. Okay. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
So finding the right type of smoke is very difficult. Also finding this particular scent in general, it's a very, very challenging thing. When you're in a hotter climate, you're not going to exactly, and I grew up in South Florida, so I'm in the same boat. I never really had the experience of this like smoke that I was trying to convey until like I started living up here, and all of a sudden I'm trying to find the right type of wood. But like, where do you get that? So one time I was at a restaurant and my friend ordered a drink and it had this amazing smell. And I said, that smells like the smoke. And he's like, oh, that's called peat. You should just ask for peat. And like, that was the way I was able to communicate it to the perfumer. And yet we still didn't encapsulate the fragrance in the way that I wanted. So it's still being refined. We're actually very close to finalizing that one. Right. But it has taken a number of iterations to communicate that. There's a couple of scents that you experience. You can experience the after of the fire or the during. And he didn't realize that I always wanted the during and he had always given me the after. So the smells are different. Also, vanilla in general, I'm not trying to find like a vanilla that you cook with. We're trying to find like a really delicate vanilla that people would be able to wear, if they're unisex fragrances. So men and women alike would be comfortable wearing that. So, finding the right type of balance to make sure that the masses are happy, but also it conveys my vision. It's not as easy as you think. And the process of creating a fragrance isn't an overnight process either. There is you put stuff in and then you have to wait for it to macerate. It like basically, it's like, it brews and it does its thing and the chemicals start working. I guess it ages, if you will, and that takes time. So it's a process. I have been doing this for about 11 months since I initially knew where I was going with this. I've been working on the whole entire initiative for about 14, but that's where I am today because it takes time, but I want it to be perfect. And I really wanted to convey where I'm going with these brands. And they're completely unique. There's nothing out there. Like their fragrances out in general, they might be inspired by XYZ. These have no inspired by XYZs. They're completely original.
Original, right.
You're not going to have, I can tell you what you might experience, like walking into a breezy spring or something like that, or going to a cozy fireplace. But there's still so much lacking. There's so much more that I can communicate in that story.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure you've learned a lot over the last 11 months while you've been, creating this product. What are some steps that you can share with maybe somebody who is also suffering from that, deep state of despair? What are some fragrances that you would recommend to them just to try to see if that does anything for them? Are there particular favorites that you have?
Let me address something. And I meant to say this a little earlier. When I tried this perfume on, the one that changed me, it wasn't something that I had not tried before. It was not my first time trying it on. Right. But it didn't have the same impact on me that first time than it did the second time. And then the third time I put it on after the experience, it didn't have the same impact as I tried it, when I recently tried it on again the fourth time. It's very interesting that it's not about fragrances in general. It's about the mindset that you have when you put it on. So that's really important. And I think it's really powerful that you need to really kind of put it on with this mindset of, this is going to envelop me today. It is going to be on my wrist. I'm going to put it on now. I'm going to take a whiff. I'm going to experience the now, the moment, and I'm going to go about my day. And then I'm going to take my hands to my wrist maybe 10 minutes later, maybe an hour later, maybe 2 hours later, maybe 2 hours and 5 minutes later. Sometimes I do that. I'll just go back to it. People probably think I'm so weird, but it's got to be mainstream behavior soon, baby. But, so you're going to be able to go back to just be brought back to that moment through doing that. Now, I mean, there's so many different fragrances, but it's really about the notes that you love. If you like vanilla, you might like this stuff. And if you it's very difficult because fragrance in general is very subjective. Yeah. And I know that what I love isn't necessarily loved by others. And I know vice versa. There's a group on online. I won't go into the specifics of where it is because it's a very, very exclusive type of community, if you will. Right. And you provide your photo, say, maybe you just say, "Scent me," and they'll give you some scents that they think will work for you. And because I was so excited and enthusiastic about fragrance, I bought everything that everybody recommended. And there were some that I hated. And I paid top dollar for the ones in particular that I hated. Wow. That was an eye-awakening experience. So I don't want to say you should try what I approve of, because at the end of the day, your experience is you're not necessarily going to experience it the same way. Also, body chemistry changes the experience. So what smells amazing on me might smell like carrots on you. I don't want to say carrots. Something completely different. So I think what everybody needs to do is don't necessarily focus on buying something that could be a blind buy. Blind buy, you buy something and you find out that you hate it. I think it's more about walking into your local store. I don't know if Sephora, I don't assume Sephora is out there, but walking into your local Sephora, walking into your local fragrance department at the mall, and trying on a few things. You can use the smelling sticks. You can use one wrist for one thing, one wrist for another thing, an elbow for one thing. You could start go crazy, and then just take it in throughout afterwards, take it in. Just
Right.
give your that moment to appreciate where you are and what you're doing. Because assuming you are suffering, or even if you're not, for most of us to do that, especially for me in my state, you're going out of your comfort zone to do something that hopefully will be able to change your life.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And Tamar, if people want to hear more from you or want to sign up to your waiting list for the product, or they want to try it out, where can they find you?
So right now, Tamar.com, I don't know when people are going to listen to this, but Tamar.com right now is building out a mailing list I'm going to be having a Kickstarter campaign just to help me mitigate the inventory risk and assist with kind of figuring out the correct balance of which one I want, if I should go with the quirky side or the flawed side, how much I need to deal with in my minimum order quantities. These are challenging. Yeah. When you're an entrepreneur, you got to figure out what you need to order of what. So I'm trying to figure that out. So I will be having some element of pre-orders. There will be, the mailing list is at Tamar.com, and you can follow the brands Tamar Essences on Instagram, on Twitter, LinkedIn. The company name is Tamar. It's just linkedin.com/company/Tamar, and Facebook, Tamar Essences. And if you want to follow me, myself, and I, it's right now twitter.com/Tamar, because I do have that one for me for now.
Right. I want to say a big thank you for coming on the show and talking about this. I really found it really, really interesting and knowledgeable.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's early for me, but at the same time, I feel so comfortable being able to share this journey with you, and I'm really
and I'm excited for you. I'm so excited for you because I really, really believe in the vision that you have and how this can actually impact people. And I think there's a gap in the market for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe, I didn't really speak about this, but I've been like this early adopter for all of these different things, like real-time customer service was something I did in between Mashable and now. And I kind of built these, I think there's a tremendous amount of momentum. This is an area, like I talked about, being a tech geek, going into fragrance is a very weird space for me. But at the same time, I'm not going into fragrance in the way that everybody else goes into fragrance. I'm going into fragrance in a way that I think is going to heal the world and make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. I feel
and that's why we're here. That's why we're here. That's what we're put on the planet. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate this conversation and you coming on. So I will be including the links to your social media presence in the show notes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really hoping that this will help a lot of people.
Yeah, it will. Good job. So there you have it. Thank you so much for listening. And for more content like this, follow us on our social media handles. On Facebook, it's at Icandemy, the Facebook page. On Instagram, it's at Icandemy. Or come say hello over on my personal page. On Instagram, it's at Mashable Speaks. On Facebook, it's Victoria Wallaby. Feel free to reach out, introduce yourself, say hello. I love meeting you. And if you have any stories that you feel will inspire another woman to action, I want to hear from you. I really do. I love hearing from you. Send me an email to hello@icandemy.org. So it's hello@icandemy.org. And if you find this content valuable, please rate and review on iTunes. Leave a review. It matters to us so that people can find it. So rate, and review on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to your podcast. Thank you.